Resilient over reactive. All right. I feel very strongly about this particular topic, and I'll explain why. I've got a couple of stories, so lock in for story time, people. I've got a couple of stories that I think are going to be very resonant to this particular topic. All right, but there's a different way we can kind of frame this call as well. We can call it something else, and we can essentially call it becoming an anti-fragile coach, right? An anti-fragile coach. And I'll explain what that means as we go through. Okay. So what to me reactive coaching is this it's emotional coaching, right? So when you coach a client and you can see they're being incredibly reactive in their life, it's usually generated from emotion, right? Reactivity shows up in everything that you engage in, from your personal life to your physical training to your business. So for you, it might present as a bad check-in that completely fucks up your mood, right? You might be on an absolute high from five clients doing really well, and then one client puts you in a bad mood because you're a reactive coach. It could be that a client leaves your service and that just makes you catastrophize, freak the fuck out, or take it incredibly personally that they've decided they no longer want to be in your business. Or it could just be that when shit hits the fan, you crumble. Okay. Very, very common behaviors that I see time and time again from coaches. And I very much resonate. Like I've been there, right? I'll explain later like how. But when you're there, it's not a constructive place to be, right? It's really not. And I think a lot of it comes down to the reactivity of an individual needing more certainty to fill the need they have to feel safe, right? So certainty is definitely a need that a lot of coaches have, right? You know that we use the scarf model to kind of ask you guys what you feel you need in the coaching process. And even if you don't say certainty, it's on the back of your mind as like yeah, I like having predictability. I like having certainty. The issue is life isn't certain and life isn't always predictable. Clients are very much not predictable. So we can't just live in this space of, oh, well, as long as I've got certainty, I'll be fine, because that's not going to happen. That's not real life, right? We need to learn how to operate without having that sense of certainty all the time. Okay. So, what is resilience then? Well, resilience to me is anti-fragility. All right. Fragile things break under pressure, right? You get those parcels delivered to your house and there's tape, red tape all over it that says fragile, be careful, it's prone to breaking, that kind of stuff. And then you've got anti-fragile things. And anti-fragile is not just something that doesn't break like a Nokia 3310. We're talking about things that grow because of the pressure. All right. So if you think about a muscle tissue, right? You put a muscle tissue under stress and stimulus, and it grows in response to be able to tolerate that stress and stimulus better next time. Your confidence as an individual will grow because you go outside of your comfort zone. No one gets more confident by isolating themselves and locking themselves in a cupboard like fucking Harry Potter, right? And then finally, clients. Your best clients will be the ones that learn through their failures because that's anti-fragile compared to clients that hold on to their failures and make it prevent them from moving forward. All right. And this is really, really important. Okay. Because what we're not saying here is we're not saying you guys need less challenge, right? Because that also isn't going to happen in life, right? That's not a scenario we can create. So the goal is to become thicker skinned. It's to step up to the challenge and take it on the chin if things don't go well, or take it in our stride if it does. Okay. Anti-fragility is a really important trait to have for you, for your clients, because failure, pressure, stress, they're all a part of life. You can't avoid those. Okay. So we might as well embrace it and understand how we can work with it. So, what does a reactive person how do they tend to respond to things? It's often from a victim lens or a victim mentality. So it's things like, why is this happening to me? Why me? Well, why not you? Why not you? I listened to there was an amazing podcast, and for anyone that needs recommendations, just let me know. There's a Simon Sinek podcast that is phenomenal, and it's basically this guy. I think he was Aussie, and he contracted bacterial meningitis which happen. It's literally like a one in a million thing to happen, right? And it absolutely messes you up, right? He had to get his legs amputated, and he was a musician, and he had to get his arms amputated, right? Had to get his legs and his arms amputated. And what did he say on this podcast? He said, it's very common for people to ask themselves, why would this happen to me? Well, I asked myself, why not? Why would it not happen to me? Because it happens to one in a million people. So why would I not be one of those one in a million? Right? You guys might do the lottery thinking, oh, what if I'm one in a million people that win it? Yet when something bad happens to you, it's like, oh, why does it have to be me? Right? That just doesn't make sense, right? Like we can't respond from a perspective of why is this happening to me? All right. What we can do is we can say, what can I do about it? All right. And the story that I can go back to is for anyone that came to our London event last year, you'll know what happened at our London event. So we spent about £1,400 on this venue to host our boardroom event in London last year. Okay, so this was a behavior change seminar that we hosted in London. And it was one of our biggest events, actually. So it was like 15 of our clients that turned up. And I was really fucking stoked for it. And we basically booked this really lovely co-working space, but the co-working space wasn't open on a weekend. So we had to pay overtime staff, which made this venue about £1,400 for us to book. And we were stood outside. We basically met just outside Liverpool Street Station. We were stood outside this place. And it was like quarter to 10 or like quarter to 9, and the event started at 9. It's like looking at my watch, I was like, fucking hell, they're pushing it a little bit with the staff. It's like 5 to 9. All right, so this is really kind of concerning now. 10 past 9, quarter past 9, no one's there to open up this fucking facility, right? So me and Laura call the company, which has a headquarters not in London, but somewhere else. And we're like, hello, we're outside this building and no one's here to let us in. And they're like, do you have a booking? And we say, yeah, and send them the booking link. And they're like, oh, sorry, we can't find it. We'll try and find some staff to open up. And then they called us back and were like, yeah, there's no staff available. It's like, okay, fantastic. Right. A reactive, fragile coach would go, fucking hell, why would this happen to me? Throw a hissy fit, have an absolute breakdown, cancel the event, right? Everybody go home. Right. What we did instead was, and this is the fortunate part about having a very supportive partner, is we just said, well, okay, what can we do about it? We're going to have to find a different venue. So we go to nearby hotels in the area and we say, we've got an event that we need to host immediately. We've got about 15 to 18 people, including staff, that need to be housed. And we managed to get a hotel basically across the road that would house us. The event started at 10 instead of 9. And it was a fucking great event. I had a great time. Actually, I had a great time. It was really fun. All right. And it was a beautiful place. Like where we managed to go and set up was actually a beautiful place and probably nicer than the place that we'd booked. Right. So again, these things are going to happen to you. That's what you do. These things are going to happen to you, right? The reality is life happens. Shit happens. If you respond to it in a way that's like, woe is me, I'm a victim, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's fucking annoying. And of course, you're a human being, so you're allowed to be pissed off. And we wrote a very strongly worded email to that company after the event, right? But the reality is, that's not going to help the clients. That's not going to help the company if we don't respond in the right way. Okay. The anti-fragile coach is going to take things in their stride and go, okay, what can I do about this? What can I control here? What can I not? We're not going to get into this co-working space. So what do we have available around us? Yeah. This also very much links to one of my favorite stories, all right, which is the parable of the Chinese farmer. I don't know if any of you guys have heard this, but it is one of my favorite stories. I told you there's a couple of story times in here today. So the parable of the Chinese farmer goes like this. There is a Chinese farmer, and one day his prized horse manages to get out of the paddock and run away. And everybody in the village is like, oh, that's such bad luck. That is so unfortunate. And the farmer goes, yeah, maybe. 2 days later, the horse returns and has brought back an entire group of horses with it. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's so lucky. I can't believe you had one horse and now you've got like 15 horses. What the fuck? And he's like, yeah, maybe. His son goes into the paddock to train the group of horses to, oh, yeah, there we go. There's the horses. To train the group of horses to break them in. And in the process of breaking in the horses, his son breaks his leg. And everybody in the village is like, oh my God, that's such bad luck. I can't believe that's happened to you. And the Chinese farmer goes, yeah, maybe. A week later, the army stopped by the village. There is a war that has broken out on the border of the country, and they are recruiting. And all the young and abled have to subscribe as soldier. It's not subscribe to sign up as soldiers to fight in this war. But because the Chinese farmer's son has broken his leg, he is not able to join the army. And everyone in the village is like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how lucky you are." And the Chinese farmer obviously says, "Yeah, maybe." Right? Because the reality is that life is going to happen to you. It's going to happen against you sometimes, and it's going to happen for you other times. And if you try and look for meaning in every single thing that happens, and you try and take it all as good luck, bad luck, can't believe this has happened to you, then you're kind of disregarding the opportunities that present themselves, right? The event that we hosted in Manchester this year was our biggest coaching event, right? It's the most amount of clients we've had attend in one event. And we host it in a really lovely area, or a really lovely hotel, right? One of mine and Laura's favorite hotel companies. The only reason we had the idea to host it in a hotel was because of the shit that happened last time, right? Otherwise, we'd still be looking for co-working spaces. Because for me, when I think of boardroom, I can't not think of co-working space, right? So the only way we were able to, or the inspiration for hosting the event we hosted, which ended up being our best event yet, or our biggest event yet, was from the shit that happened in London last year, right? It's very easy to look at things and go, that's bad luck, that's good luck. You read into things far too much. And the reality is, life is just happening. It doesn't happen against you, it doesn't happen for you. You just have to kind of take it in your stride and do what you can do. Control the controllables, right? So, what is the victim lens? The victim lens to me is a reactive thinking pattern. All right. Life is happening against me. People are out to get me. People are going to judge me. Why does this always happen to me? Right. The issue with this is it can create a lot of emotional volatility and helplessness. Right. That's the victim lens. I'm helpless. And the issue with victimhood is that it removes agency. Right. So agency is your capacity to do something. So someone with high agency has a capacity to do a lot of things, right? You put them in a situation, they're able to deal with the situation. Someone with low agency has an inability to do things. So you put them in a situation, they can't deal with the situation. Victimhood removes your agency. It basically makes you unable to manage and deal with situations, right? And I know this firsthand, right? So to get a wee bit more vulnerable with you guys, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm a child of divorce. When I was 14 years old, my dad left home, and it was a messy divorce, like a really messy divorce. So basically, for the next 4 years of my life, from 14 to 18, my parents basically battled against each other using kids as ammunition. So they basically used me, my brother, and sister as ammo against each other in this incredibly messy divorce. So my family is very dramatic anyway, right? But my response in this was that, you know, I'm a victim of my childhood, right? So I'm a victim of my parents respond like acting as irresponsible adults, not understanding how that affects the children around them. And that thinking pattern that you get into where you blame others regardless of whether it's their fault or not their fault, is kind of irrelevant, right? Because as soon as you get into that thinking pattern, what you do and how you act and how you behave and the decisions that you make are all ruled by that experience that you've had, right? So, what do you think my relationship was with my family members, What do you think my relationship was with building relationships with other people? My attitude towards parenting? My attitude towards becoming a parent? How do you think all of that was shaped based on my experience? Right? That's victimhood. Because the issue is my opinion on all of those things is being directly influenced by this one experience, but I'm letting it. I'm the one that's letting that happen. I've removed my agency now because I've acted like a victim in that situation. Now, lo and behold, I have a great relationship with my brother, my sister, my mum. It's okay with my dad. We kind of talk sometimes, right? And my attitude towards parenting is so fucking different because as soon as I removed that victimhood and I said, my parents just didn't have the tools to understand how to respond to that situation well, right? Unfortunately, they didn't spend their 20s reading self-help books like I did, right? They didn't spend their 20s reading The Chimp Paradox, Psycho-Cybernetics, Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Surrounded by Idiots, all these books that make you perceive life maybe a little bit differently or think differently. My parents didn't have any of that. So they were just doing the best that they could with what they had available. It's just that what they had available was fucking terrible, right? As soon as I was able to take that lens, my decision making process into the future has come back into my hands, right? So I have regained agency over my behaviors, my decision, my relationships, right? That is the importance of dropping the victim lens and taking back your agency, right? Now, why am I telling you this? Well, we'd like to use extreme examples as a circumstance, right? Because it kind of embodies the message. But this is the same with everything. This is the same with your health and fitness goals. This is the same with the gym that you work in, where you feel uninspired and that everyone's out to get you. This is, having issues with your family members like I did. This is, seeing coaches online that you completely disagree with. Yeah. There's all of these things. You can choose to be the victim, that's absolutely fine, but it's understanding that as soon as you make that choice, you are actively reducing your agency and you are actively reducing your ability to help yourself persevere and be resilient. So what do we recommend instead? Well, instead, we're going to build real resilience and we're going to build it through failures, right? And that's absolutely fine. Life's built through failures. You don't avoid them, right? We can all see that in our clients. The more you try and bubble wrap them and not make for them to not make failures, they don't become resilient clients. Actually, some of the clients, the best clients that you'll have will be clients that have actively failed and moved forward, right? Fail again, but fail better. Yeah. So what do we want to do? Because we're not going to create this situation where we're failing all the time and kind of self-deprecating. So it's really important that we create small, deliberate challenges that can build evidence, right? You guys know us by now. We know that belief systems are developed through evidence and a stack of evidence, right? So whether you need to be better at having difficult conversations with people, whether you need to be more consistent with posting online or taking more risks or, doing something incredibly challenging, it's really a bad idea to do that in a really extreme circumstance. So if we take posting consistently as an example, if you struggle with posting consistently for fear of judgment, the next post you make probably shouldn't be a reel where you're putting your heart on your absolute sleeve and posting it online, because the risk is up here for someone to judge you and for that to hit a nerve. So what are you going to do instead? Well, you're going to choose the smallest deliberate challenge you can that allows consistency to build over time. You might post a photo, you might post a closed caption, right? Which is just a black screen with white text on it, right? And why would you post that? Because it is the smallest proof you need that no one's going to take the piss out of you. And that evidence is really useful because then you post again and no one takes the piss out of you. And then you post again. And suddenly you're posting in spite of fear because you've created this small deliberate challenge. Right? It's the same with difficult conversations. You're not going to have difficult conversations with the person that most intimidates you. That's a fucking terrible idea. But have a difficult conversation with someone that you trust because it's far safer. Gain the evidence, and then start to grade the exposure into more difficult circumstances. Yeah, this is how we're going to build resilience over time. This is a realistic way of doing it, right? I'm not going to ask you guys to do something you're absolutely terrified by and do it in a really aggressive manner, right? Really exaggerated manner. That's not going to happen. But what you can certainly do is you can take a small step. So environments are going to be the other thing, right? So for anyone that came to the Manchester event, you'll know that environments are a huge part. Tim did an amazing talk on this, right? Environments are going to be a huge part of not just your success, but how reactive you are as a person, right? And I know this because my household was it was a reactive environment. It was a really reactive environment. And I know that my reactivity was just a response to other people's reactivity, right? And that's what I grew up around. All right. And it wasn't until I changed my environment and I was around people that were less reactive and more resilient that I was able to identify actually, oh, there is a different way to respond to life. So resilient people are going to be people that share struggles honestly with you, right? It's not going to be people that pretend that life is perfect, right? They're going to talk about the shit that happens as well. Yeah. They share struggles, they share vulnerabilities, they normalize failure. Yeah, you don't want to be around people that don't talk about failure, that only talk about their successes. That's not really going to paint a clear picture in your head of resilience. And then they're going to encourage responsibility, not excuses. I see this quite a lot. There's actually a couple of ex-colleagues that I have that do this quite poorly still, I think, where they act as if they're hard done by and they're a victim to their circumstances, right? Because they take no responsibility. They absolutely no responsibility, right? And we both know what happens to a client when a client takes no responsibility, right? Do they move forward? No, of course they fucking don't, right? So it's really important that at some point we just take responsibility, right, for where we are in life. Because the more responsibility we take back agency. And if we take back agency, we're able to actually do something about it, all right? So you need to ask yourself who in your life reinforces these things. Who in your life reinforces blame? Who in your life reinforces avoidance? And who in your life reinforces helplessness? Right? And then who does the opposite? Who reinforces growth? And if you can answer that correctly, you're gonna find that you spend more times in the environments that are conducive to growth. And trust me, that is a way nicer place to exist. It just it's just a far nicer place to be, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should absolutely drop everyone in your life that encourages more reactivity and victimhood, right? Because that's not real life either. Okay, you will have certain levels of both loyalty and history with certain people. What you're going to do then is you're going to manage your environments around those people. Okay, so the only reason that I have a really good relationship with my siblings and my family now is because I've managed that environment. At first, I removed myself entirely, but something that comes to mind actually is this idea of, and I think Jay Shetty spoke about this. Say what you want about Jay Shetty. I think there's some really interesting lessons in some of the stuff he talks about. But he talks about this idea that if you wanted to be a monk, being a monk when you're in a temple on top of a fucking mountain is the easiest thing in the world. But trying to be a monk when you're stuck in rush hour traffic is the hardest thing, right? So if you really want to practice a skill of something, you need to put yourself back in that environment and see how your mindset tolerates it. Okay. And that is very much what I resonate with my family is like removing myself was one step, but actually being able to reintegrate myself back and have a relationship with the people that I love in a way that I can still manage. That is like self-actualization at its finest. Yeah. So it's the same here. I'm not saying that you should isolate yourself. I would never recommend that, but it is going to be really important to manage that environment. Okay.